Hello everyone, I am Janet, and I will be your virtual presenter. Let me say thanks to Rowan for inviting me to talk on the metaverse. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. I am sure you must have realized that a major social media company has rebranded itself. Since its rebranding, the word metaverse seems to be on the lips of everyone. But what is the metaverse? The concept of the metaverse seems to have come from an author named Neil Stephenson. Stephenson first used the term in a novel in 1992. The concept of a metaverse is that there is a realism of objects within a virtual environment. However, with the improvements in technology, the level of realism has improved to the extent that users can use a combination of technology to enable work, play, and social interaction within the virtual space. In summary, the future metaverse will be a 3D experience that will use augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, and persistent connections to create an immersive world for users. In the next few years, our world will change, and we will have total immersion. According to the BBC, unlike VR, the metaverse will create the space for work, play, concerts, and cinema trips. Now, before I move on, let me say when a system is not regulated, we will have various problems. For example, various social media platforms have been used for hate speech, bullying, and other forms of actions that show a disregard for basic humanity. This all happens on one page. Let's be realistic, these social spaces will reflect users' ideologies, prejudices, and behaviors. I would urge policymakers to seriously consider regulating emerging metaverse spaces based on the addictive nature of current social media platforms. Furthermore, these spaces, if not monitored adequately, could become unsafe for children and even create additional threats for our democracy. Frankly, we do not want technology to replace our human connections. Therefore, if individuals are consistently in this virtual space for hours, how will we build human relationships? We are already seeing family members texting members of the same household within the same space. Could we see family members communicating in the future via the virtual spaces instead of the physical space? This is just not the way to go. Therefore, there must be public health guidelines. If left unchecked, the effects of sitting around playing video games will be nothing compared to the unhealthy lifestyles of users in these virtual spaces. A virtual world where there are no guidance or protocols will lead to chaos. Individuals in these virtual worlds can engage in activities in the virtual world that would be criminal in the real world. Just consider that the future VR world will embody the user to the point that they can have a sense of touch within this world. What if someone purposefully touched someone inappropriately in the VR world? Would this be acceptable? Research conducted by a Portland-based research group stated that almost 50% of women were sexually harassed during their virtual reality experience. This brings me to this point. Do we need to police these spaces? I would say at this point, we need to consider ethical guidelines, laws, and protocols for these spaces. Otherwise, the problems we are currently having because of certain social media platforms will be nothing compared to the crisis to come if these spaces are allowed to develop independently of external guidelines aimed at protecting the user. Within these virtual spaces, people will be able to buy goods and services, meet friends, and interact with others. We have seen the possible impact when a dominant social media platform is allowed to monitor its own ethics and protocols. There is also the issue of privacy that needs to be addressed. I want you to think critically about who should control the metaverse. A sole company owning a platform with billions of users in its immersive virtual space could be problematic. Hence the need for external guidelines. Let me say the metaverse could change the landscape of learning spaces, social interaction, and our way of life. Notwithstanding, we must consider the need for balance to ensure that we do not remove ourselves from the physical space and physical interaction with others. Educators, instructional designers, policymakers, and users of this technology must begin to advocate for good practice during the design, development, and deployment of the metaverse. Thanks for listening. At this point, I will pass it over to Rowan for final comments.
Thanks, Janet, for that presentation. As a matter of fact, you had me thinking about what the future will be if we do not address the ethical issues and we do not set up guidelines and framework for the operation of virtual worlds. Just imagine, we have so many things going on as it relates to our major social media platforms today, and it's just on a page. Just imagine you are practically immersed within that space and you have all sorts of things that are going on in our social world taking place in the virtual world. You can have discourses that will be multiplied as it relates to being discriminatory if it's not controlled, because people will believe that they can do things in the virtual space and they are not accountable because it's a virtual space. Therefore, we have to have guidelines. Now, just imagine in our social world, if someone were to post something on a page threatening a leader, that would be deemed as being criminal in intent. Now, in the virtual world, do you think the same should happen without any consequences? I think there must be consequences because we have to safeguard our children. We have to safeguard ourselves as users. And in addition, we must consider the issue of privacy. These are fundamental issues that must be considered. If we turn a blind eye to ethics, morals, and the elements that sustain our society, that is always conditional based on penalties, right? Then we will have a world that is in chaos, that is discriminatory, exclusionary, spreads and produce hate in our society. And of course, that is going to be transformed into the physical society too. The reality is that our world, our physical world, is going to influence the virtual world. And if we do not give the same accountability in these virtual spaces, we're going to have problems. Therefore, it's important, as Janet stated, to ensure that these issues are addressed. I will be bringing you more of this in the future. Thanks, and remember to subscribe.